So in this video, I want to take you through the sketchbook process that we follow on the course. So I've got a lovely example here. This is an ex-student of mine, Valentina. So let's take you through. The first stage is the mind map, which acts like a springboard, of your initial ideas. So I will encourage my students to use the website Go Conquer, and then they can put together their mind map there. And then I break them up into sections, so I encourage them to think about the camera techniques that they will be applying, the location, whether it's going to be studio or environmental. Think about the subject, so we've got portraits here, how that relates to magazines, social media, and then start to think about also portraiture and the emotions related to portraits, and also, special events in our lives where we record those treasured memories. So this works as literally a starting point. So the next stage is the mood boards. So again, I like my students to make sure that they are using key artists in their images, and they also make sure that they've got the artist's name alongside the work. So we've got Pinterest. I've got lots of websites I recommend my students to look at to find artists' work, but it's really just a collection of lovely, inspiring images relating to the chosen theme. The next stage then is the research. Now we spend a long time really perfecting the research, because within the AO areas, in AO1, this is particularly critical because this is about you providing evidence of your critical and analytical understanding. So when we do the research, I will ask the students to find a couple of images here. So we've got a couple of other examples by Nick Knight that relate to the image that they choose to deconstruct. Then they find a simple quote, again, that relates to the work. It doesn't have to be from the photographer. It can be just someone else that's written about the photographer's work. Then a couple of lines about the context of who the photographer is, the nationality, what they're famous for, what type of work they produce. And then on the second page, we start to really dissect. So we start to look at the content of the photo, the genre. We start to think about the process. How was the photo created? What is the photographer communicating through the images? And then the overall mood and the form. What's the focal point? Which formal elements are dominant in the image? And then the inspiration. Who's inspired Nick Knight? And then your response and connection, how it's inspired you. So we take the time to really produce quality research. And then you can either research another key photographer, or you can look at researching a technique. So here, Valentina's researched a photographer and their technique. So she's decided that she wants to apply. Same process again, content, process, communication, mood, form, response, inspiration. Then we have the contact sheets that are produced in, we produce those in Photoshop. So we automate the contact sheets. Now, I personally think it's really good to have, 32 strong images, and you can see them here. They're quite large. So then it means then she can draw around them, annotate around the pictures as well. But you can clearly see what's happening in the pictures. You don't want the contact sheets to be too small. And then the next thing she does is she starts to think about evaluating. So it's all very reflective. It's reviewing and refining. So what was the aim of the shoot? What were the positives? What worked well in that shoot? Key technique. Always make sure you are making it clear about the camera settings that you've used. The aperture, the shutter speed, the ISO. If you use the studio, did you have your camera on a tripod? What lighting did you use? All of this is reinforcing that your knowledge that you have, and then it's providing the evidence here in your sketchbook. And then the improvements. How do you want to move forward? It's all about progression. Where do you want to go? And then another detail we like to add is the technical data. And this again is quite lovely just to have a simple little sketch. Now Valentina's a very accomplished artist, but on this case a little stick figure is perfectly fine. That's all we need, just to show where the camera was, the model, and how she took the pictures, and most importantly emphasizing these settings again. And also back here, forgot to refer to this, it's really good to make sure you've got your visual artist linked to your work as well. So it's just making that visual connection here. So we see this motion and you can see the visual connections here with the images. And then from that, we then go on to basically showing what you've done in Camera Raw. So the students use Photoshop and then they use the filter Camera Raw to edit their images. And what Valentina's done here is she's taken a screenshot and then shows exactly the settings. It saves her writing everything down what she's done, but she's making it visual and clear, and she's got the image before and the image after, and she's deliberately changed the colours and adjusted it so it matches more with Nick Knight's image. And again she's shown his image alongside, and then she's applied the same with the image deconstruction as she has with her research to her own work as well. So it's linking it all in, and she carries on with this process, and then she's got her A4 print. I think one strong image deconstruction per shoot is absolutely fine, and then you can just show a selection of other images as well. So there's another one there, like so, and it's already beginning to show like quite a nice sort of order and system. And then this was her responses, so she's applied this technique from this artist here to her work, and then she's image deconstructed that, and then here's a selection of those pictures. And then she moves on to her next shoot. Now I encourage your students to take a number of shoots because it's all about experimentation and progression. So this time Valentina has looked at these photographers here who collaborate together, creating these very sort of refined editorial sort of fashion shoots for people like Vogue. And so she really loved this style. So she's gone through the image deconstruction again, and she's looked at who's inspired them, and they were looking at classical 18th century paintings. And then she's looked at this artist who is a technique artist, and he is renowned for defacing and creating this sort of kind of removing and erasing the identity of people in the photo. So he's applied that technique, but she's also referred to his inspiration of Robert Damaki. So she's done her homework, she's done her research. And then this is her next contact sheet. So she's got her images. You can clearly see there's visual links here with the posing of the model as well. And then she's gone through the same process, the aim of the shoot, positives, technique, improvements. And then she's got the technical data here. So it's been shot in the studio, so there's a little bit more detail there. And then she carries on the same before and after that she's showing there. She's also applied a technique to create a sort of painterly surface, and then her image deconstruction. And then the images continue. An image deconstruction here. She's been using, she started to rub away the surface of the images as well. So we've got a lovely selection of images here. This is where we've got the Robert Damaki coming in here, the technique. So Jacob Roberts here, she's used sandpaper to rub away the surface here. You can see it quite clearly on the hands. And then she's researched another photographer here, and then the technique artist here of John Klang. carrying on, drawing, selecting, marking up, carrying on. It's very systematic, it's very ordered, it's very organised, and most importantly, it's consistent. And that's what they want to see, consistency across the board. And there's the next shoot, like so. So you can see she's beginning to get a bit more of style to her work. These are really beautifully linked as well. There's clear visual connections there. It's important that your research artists are relevant. You can see the relationship between them. And then she's applied John Klang's technique with her images as a technique, as a sort of experimentation. Now she takes it out of the studio and goes back into the landscape. So then she's taken this shoot here as well. So working with the same surfaces, clean film and plastics, and photographing through the plastics. And then she's tried the process. I know she wasn't that keen of including these in her sketchbook, but again, it's all about showing the experimentation and progression. So she was trying image transfer, and this wasn't really working particularly well, but you can see it started to improve, and then that was her third one. So you can see the progression there, and she starts to experiment, printing on different papers as well. And then she's really starting, this is her fifth shoot, so she doesn't need to do more research, but she still links in the artists, and then she's marking these clearly of where she wants to crop. She's still got the technical data, and then she's got the images like so. And she started to photograph the studio setup as well. So that's a good thing to do, but it is good to do some sketches as well. And you can see here how she's editing and adjusting the pictures to make it more sort of visually linked, but also it just makes the pictures look cleaner and brighter. And this is Valentina's second sketchbook. So we can see here, carrying on, developing from this previous shoot, still following the very organised system that she's got. Experimenting here with colour as well in the shoots. Again, using the John Klang technique. This works really lovely. Here she's even used phone apps as well, which is, you know, this is all relevant. It's all about experimentation. The images look quite pixelated, but it was quite an interesting idea as well. Then she's started to create lovely hand collages here, which are just beautiful. She's just cut those, so really lovely. Lovely to use the model's hands as well in the shoots. And then she started to weave the images, removing the identity as well. So constantly pushing her ideas. And then she's moved into this shoot here. And we just got a contact sheet to add there. And then we've got the image deconstruction, and it just carries on. Then she starts to introduce photographing through glass as well. So spraying water on the glass. You can see here with the setup. And these look really lovely. Started to make the colours a little bit more neutral there as well. Doing a comparison, white backgrounds, black backgrounds as well, to see how those work. Different poses. Here we are. I mean, she sort of starts to really refine her ideas here, and she starts to think about the pressure on young people, especially young male sort of students, and starts to put together questionnaires for some of the students at the school, and thinks about the pressure that they're under. And she was then influenced by Michael Wharf as well. And she didn't need to do research, but she just felt that his work was really relevant. And you can see here with the sort of compression of people against the subway glass, and you can see the connection there. So this is good. This is a student going above and beyond, doing that extra work, doing that extra mile, just to make sure that the sketchbook's really informed. And here we go. Lovely contact sheet here as well. Contact sheet evaluation, clear markings again. And then the sketchbook just carries on. And you can see it's really focused. Like so, with the lovely water droplets there. Making sure Michael Wharf's work's linked there. Really beautiful shallow depth of field as well. And then she starts to work towards her final shoots here. Here we go. So she's gone back to one of her original models, Lucas there. And just really strong images. And then takes it through to her final images here. So she's thinking about poses as well, thinking about how can she show that pressure that young people are under. We've got this here as well, like so. And alongside this, she also produces an essay to support her work, so that clearly states her ideas, her intentions throughout the whole sketchbook. And then for the final show, she would then pick the 3 final images that she would show. So it's a very tight body of work with a very clear, focused, sustained project. So that is what we call the sketchbook cycle. Thank you. Here we have Valentina's essay for her component 1, and we call this the personal log evaluation. So the way I design the course is I feel that it's really important to evaluate the work throughout the project, and that's of course that hits the assessment criteria. So rather than doing an essay about comparing 2 photographers, we do an essay where we do an in-depth evaluation of the journey of the process. So we pull out a lot of the details from the sketchbook, and then we start to create a sort of very in-depth evaluation. So here Valentina's taken it through the first steps, clearly showing her visual links to the photographers, and then her first shoot. And here we go, and then she starts to look at the development work that she did as well. So we've got also her experimentations. Then it moves on to her second shoot, again showing clear visual connections between the artists and her work, and picking some of her key images. And then she's also looked at the the technique artist, and she's shown the work there, and then how she's applied the technique to her work. Constantly reviewing her aims of her photo shoot, the techniques that she used, and who inspired her. And it just methodically goes through each of the shoots and each of the techniques that she's learnt. And here we've got a bit of image transfer as well. And then she's moving into more of her sophisticated collage work, including some of the phone app work that she did as well, and then her hand collages too. And here, showing the weaving process that she's used, then starting to use the full frame camera, linking her work to Michael Wharf. Even though it was her 7th shoot, she felt it was relevant to make sure she included him there. So you can see clear visual connections, and this then takes her through to her final images, and then sort of goes into a bit more depth about the work being about the pressure on young males, and this idea of people feeling like they need to fit in social circles, the expectations of a school and the parents, and the pressures of thinking about what they want to do in their future. So, and then it overall sort of explains how happy she was with the project and what she would do if she had more time to expand it. And then lastly, the bibliography, clearly showing the links to the websites and the key photo books that she's researched. So this is a really good essay. It ties in. We know the assessment criteria is holistic, so this then feeds across all 4 assessment objectives and just informs the work and brings out more clarity about the ideas.